Hello everyone. With this utter chaos of an election campaign drawing to a close, I thought I would weigh in with my thoughts about what we need to be discussing more to help people make an informed vote. Which hopefully after this will be one for Labour, although this will serve to make you think about some issues you might not have thought about before, even if it does seem like incoherent rambling with no real point. On to the first part. On the 7th of December, The Sun, a right-wing tabloid owned by News UK, whose parent company News Corp is owned by the Murdoch family, who have a net worth of around $14.3 billion, published a now-deleted article claiming to have found Jeremy Corbyn at the centre of a hard-left extremist network. Among sources for this article was a website called Aryan Unity and another called Millennium Report, which has published such articles as The Jewish Hand in the World Wars Part 2. This is one of the many examples of right-wing publications consorting with horrific anti-Semites, and yet the BBC has not published anything about it, nor has The Sun offered an apology. Another example of this phenomenon is during Boris Johnson's time as editor of The Spectator, he had a writer on the payroll by the name of Taki Theodorakopoulos. This is a man who during the same period was investigated by the police for inciting racial hatred, but went on to reform his ways. Just kidding, he went on to work with Richard Spencer, a notorious neo-Nazi best known for having a hand in organising the Unite the Right rally, in which men with torches walked through the street chanting neo-Nazi slogans. What cannot be stressed enough is that the mainstream right wing in this country, with the power of large media conglomerates behind it, is not as far removed from actual violent fascism as anyone should be comfortable with. And yet many of these right-wing voices are the ones telling us that a vote for Labour is categorically a vote for anti-Semitism. Something else with a lack of coverage is unfortunately just how anti-Semitic our country is in general. In 2017, a survey of over 200,000 British adults showed that when presented with 7 anti-Semitic statements, 36% of these adults agreed with at least one. If the Labour Party exhibited the same level of anti-Semitism as the general public, they would rightly lose all their credibility. We should be having a discussion of where these views are coming from, The Sun maybe being a good place to start. We should be discussing how to let these views be challenged in the open. We should not be unveiling statues of people who claim Nazism was a solution to the world problem of Jews, especially if we are former Prime Minister Theresa May. But instead, we are handed cherry-picked examples of anti-Semitism within one political party, irresponsibly designed to make us believe the problem is not as urgent or as widespread as it is. Articles that focus on Labour's anti-Semitism and neglect the wider picture make us less willing to vote, rather than making us more willing to challenge anti-Semitism wherever we see it, as British leftists have a long tradition of doing. The most frustrating thing is that the doubling in hate crimes over the last 5 years under the Conservatives, which lines up with the rise in far-right movements across the world, has largely been brushed under the rug. If we could see into the future of a Labour government and saw a doubling in anti-Semitic hate crime, it would be utterly damning, and rightly so. But the rise in hate crime under the Tories, including a doubling of anti-Semitic hate crime, is just seen as another unfortunate statistic. It's happened now. What do you want us to do about it? We can't seem to work out that it might have something to do with Boris Johnson's comments about Muslim women. Nor can we seem to work out that it might be to do with Boris Johnson's friendship with Steve Bannon, former editor of far-right news site Breitbart. No amount of Conservative voters explaining this away with cries of, "Ah yes, but Corbyn," will change the fact that many of the 8 million people from minority backgrounds in this country have their security and mental health threatened by hate crime. And the media has simply dropped this discussion in favour of rampant speculation about what could happen under a Labour government. On the 15th of November, the Labour Party promised to deliver free full-fibre broadband to all by 2030. The initial response by media outlets was not that this would revolutionise life for the 53% of people on a low income that do not currently use broadband at home. It was not that internet access is quickly becoming the bare minimum technology people need to have to access banking, for kids to do homework, for older people not to feel isolated from their friends and family. The thing that's consistently mentioned first is, how can we pay for it, Jeremy? And this response is consistent to all of Labour's policies. This seems completely backwards, since surely if we cared about these issues that affect millions in our country, we would treat something like free broadband or increasing healthcare spending by 4.3% a year as a fixed goal to work towards, as a matter of duty to the people of this country. Then, only if no way at all was found to achieve this would we say, okay, this isn't possible, let's now reconsider. Instead of this approach, we have all the emphasis placed on the cost of these transformative policies before we are allowed even to begin considering what British people require from a government. Continuing to screw over the poor has been made to seem like the common sense option in this election, as what tiny amount of collective empathy we had as a country is being squeezed out of us by right-wing media. It's worth mentioning at this stage that the reckless Labour spending line is not even close to the truth in most cases. Indeed, their manifesto is costed, and recent research by 2 professors at the University of Greenwich shows that nationalising Royal Mail, energy and water grids could pay for itself within 7 years. I'm growing up at a time where there is enormous amounts of poverty and misery in this country. It's evident that change is needed, but then I go online and see newspaper articles and people on Twitter not even going with the patronising, oh, I'd absolutely love this, but it's not possible at all line, just outright laughing at and mocking policies which should improve the lives of millions, and I wonder what's happened. We're deliberately being told that it's not just unrealistic, but laughable to prioritise the lives of the most downtrodden people in Britain over keeping our economy exactly like it is now. And the people poisoning the discussion like this are the media companies and the politicians who are acting in the interest of those who'd be worse off under a Labour government. Finally, in the current polarised political climate, it feels good to sit back and say, there's just so many people shouting at each other, the Corbyn extremists, the Boris Brexit club. I wish we could just all be friends. Try it now. However, this helps no one. Drawing equivalencies between Labour and the Conservatives not only does nothing to help the millions in poverty, it gives people the idea that this election is a choice between 2 evils, between 2 sets of policies that will make no difference and only serve to win votes. It increases apathy in a time where voting is of great importance. In this election, this is not the case. Comparing the manifestos of the 2 main parties gives an idea of the scale of the Labour Party's plans compared to the Conservatives. Net zero carbon emissions during the 2030s, raising the minimum wage to £10 an hour for all workers, nationalising a huge number of services including rail and the largest energy companies. When you look at policy rather than a simplified view of bad red man versus bad blue man, it becomes clear that a Labour government would have noticeable and largely beneficial real-life effects on most families across the country. There will never be a party to heal the divide, and billing the Lib Dems as this is incorrect. They refused to work with Labour in 2010 because of Brown, in 2015 again because of Ed Balls, and now because of Corbyn. It's unsurprising all their seats in 2017 came from constituencies with levels of social deprivation in the bottom half, since this kind of apolitical fence-sitting is really a privilege that people unaffected by policy can enjoy. That's all I have to say for now. Go and vote on December the 12th. Leave your thoughts in the comments, and I hope this has made you think about some issues that maybe aren't being made to seem as important as they are in this election. Or maybe I'm a brainwashed lefty. You decide. Thank you.